Okay, let's continue. Discuss other methods in analyzing um, alternatives. No? When the project's life or the alternatives' lives are longer or shorter than the analysis period. Okay, so I think we still have two approaches. So aside from what we have discussed in the or illustrated in the previous problems, we still have other approaches here. Okay. Another approach is the least common multiple approach or the LCM approach. Okay. So for LCM approach, calculate the present worth. Usually we use the present worth na no? It's a method. Although you can also use the other methods, but we usually use the present worth method at the MARR and use the same selection guideline as that for equal life alternatives. Okay. So the LCM approach makes the cash flow estimates extend to the same period as required. So if we have two alternatives, for example, two projects, so we're going to compute for the least common multiple. An example is, for example, we have lives of 3 and 4 years. So one project's life is 3 years, another project's life is 4 years. Okay. When we compared, i-compare natin yan. So the least common multiple of 3 and 4 is 12. Okay, 12 yan. Okay. So we're going to compare the two projects or alternatives in a 12-year period. So how do we do that? No, meron tayong procedure mamaya. Okay. So the first cost of an alternative is reinvested. So ito yung gagawin natin. So halimbawa sa first year, so at the beginning of the project, meron kang initial investment na 1 million. Ang life lang niya is 3 years. No? So every 3 years, magkakaroon ka ng investment na 1 million. 1 million until the 12th year kapag 12 years ang analysis period natin. Okay? So every 3 years, mag-invest ka ng 1 million. Of course, that is not realistic because the value of 1 million now is not equivalent to the value of 1 million after 3 years. So, but that's what we do in this particular approach. So the first cost of an alternative is reinvested at the beginning of each life cycle. Okay, and the estimated salvage value is accounted for at the end of each life cycle when calculating the present worth values over the LCM periods. Additionally, the LCM approach requires that some assumptions be made about subsequent life cycles. So the assumptions when using the LCM approach are that the service provided will be needed over the entire LCM years or more. Okay? So ang assumption natin, halimbawa 12 years, let's go back to the 3 and 4 years na life ng projects. So ang assumption natin is that for the entire 12 years, okay, kailangan yung service na pina-provide. Okay, that's one assumption which is uh, may not be true in reality, ano. Okay? And second assumption is that the selected alternative can be repeated over each life cycle of the LCM in exactly the same manner. Let's say for example, yung one alternative or one project, ang first cost niya is 1 million and the annual operating cost niya is 500,000. So if we're go for the for that's the first 3 years. So the next 3 years ganoon ulit. Okay, may initial cost ka na 1 million and then 500,000 na operations and maintenance cost. Ganon din sa next 3 years until ma-meet natin yung analysis period natin na 12 years. So ganon din sa kapag 4 years, no? So, 4 years, yung values mo, 4 years, yung value ng initial cost, maintenance and operations cost will be the same in the next succeeding 4 years and then the next succeeding 4 years until we meet the 12-year period. Okay? Okay. That's the second assumption. Next is the cash flow estimates are the same for each life cycle. So some similar to the second assumption. So yung estimates natin ay pare-parehas yan for each life cycle, which is unrealistic, ano? Kasi yung value ng pera natin today is different na sa yung 1 million ngayon, iba na yung hindi na siya, although the same amount, 1 million next after 3 years for example, yung value nun ay hindi na magkaparehas. So although the amount is the same, the value would be different. So kung anong nabibili ng 1 million ngayon, hindi na yun yung nabibili niya after 3 years. So that's yan yung medyo kwan sa approach na to, no? Okay. So yung LCM approach. Another is the study period approach, which is quite similar to our example, problem example, before. So study period approach or the analysis period approach. Okay. So the study period approach or analysis is necessary if the first assumption about the length of time the alternatives are needed cannot be made. Okay. For the study period approach, a time horizon is chosen over which the economic analysis is conducted, and only those cash flows which occur during that time period are considered relevant to the analysis. Okay? So ano itong study period approach? The company sets the analysis period or the study period. Okay, for example, if the company wants to analyze all the project, okay, for 5 years. Tapos yung mga alternatives, alternative A natin, yung life niya is 10 years. Alternative B, ang life niya is 15 years. Ang analysis lang natin would be yung lahat ng cash flows within 5 years. Okay? So, forget about the succeeding cash flows for each project. Basta ang involved lang sa analysis would be the first 5 years of each project. Okay? So, all cash flows occurring beyond the study period are ignored. So, wala nang pakialam yung mga cash flows beyond the analysis period or study period. So, an estimated market value at the end of the study period must be made. The time horizon chosen might be relatively short, especially when short-term business goals are very important. The study period approach is often used in replacement analysis. It is also useful when the LCM of alternatives yields an unrealistic evaluation period, for example, 5 and 9 years. No? Minsan kasi, or madalas, no, yung LCM approach ay it would yield an unrealistic evaluation. No? For example, pag 5 and 9 years, 9 years, hindi ang ano, medyo malaki yung LCM mo diyan. Okay? So that's the study period approach. And we'll have an example of this methods. Now, we have this example to illustrate both approaches. So, COE Construction Company. So, ang daming company ng COE ah. So, COE Construction Company plans to purchase a new cut and finish equipment. Two manufacturers offered the estimates below. So, vendor A and vendor B. So, first cost for vendor A is 750,000. Vendor B is quite more expensive than vendor A. Annual maintenance and operations cost is 175 for A. Mas mura naman sa B. No? Salvage value is 50,000 for vendor A, and then 100,000 for vendor B. The life of vendor A is 6 years and vendor B is 9 years. Okay? So again, cost ito. So it's a service project. Hindi ko nalagyan ng negative. Pero since cost yan, automatic naman na negative yan. Okay? Except for salvage value because something that would come back to you. Okay? So letter A, determine which vendor should be selected on the basis of present worth comparison if the MARR is 15% per year. Then COE Construction Company has a standard practice of evaluating all options over a 5-year period. If a study period of 5 years is used and the salvage values are not expected to change, okay, which vendor should be selected? So for letter B, hindi raw maki-change yung salvage value. Kahit na 5 years yung study period or analysis period, 6 years yan, tapos 9 years to. Yung salvage value pa rin ay 50,000 kahit na 5 years yung analysis period. So 50,000 yung salvage value niya at the end of 5 years. Ito, 100,000 din yung salvage value niya at the end of 5 years. So hindi siya mag-iiba. Okay. So that's our assumption. So let's solve for letter A. I think letter A, our approach would be the least common multiple or the LCM approach, and letter B, the study period approach since nagbigay yung company ng study period. Okay, so solution now for A, determine which vendor should be selected on the basis of a present worth of comparison if MARR is 15% per year. So since ano ang least common multiple nila? 6 and 9 o 18 years. No, yung least common multiple. So for vendor A, since 6 years yung lifespan niya, meron tayong 1, 2, 3 cycles. Okay. So ano ang assumption natin for LCM? Yung isang cycle, parehas lang sa next cycle, parehas lang sa next cycle. So meron tayong investment na 750,000. Yung ating annual maintenance and operations cost is 175,000. Tapos may salvage value tayo na 50,000 at the end of 6 years. So, and then, after ng isang cycle, mag-invest ulit tayo ng 750,000. May salvage value ulit na 50,000 another 6 years. And then, another cycle until the 18th year. So, yan. Inulit lang natin itong first cycle, second cycle, third cycle. Same values at the beginning, in between, and at the end of 6 years. So we're going to use the present worth method. So since service project ito, we're going to compare the cost of each project or vendor in this case. So, ayan, ito yung ating equation to solve for the NPW, net present worth. So, ayan, F1, F2, F3, F4, and F5. Yung A natin is similar lang naman, pare-pare siya until the 18th year. Annual is 175,000. So this would be F1, F2. Meron tayong ito i-transfer na hindi ko na nakuha yung F1 is cost, F4 yung mga salvage values. Okay. Ayan. So i-transfer natin lahat ito. 50,000, 50,000, 50,000 punta dito sa may compute natin yung present value or present worth niya. Ganon din ito. So, we know how to compute that already. Ito na yung ating equation. Okay, and then for letter A, for vendor A, ang net present worth natin is negative 2.27, approximately 2.27 million pesos. That's the net present worth. Okay? So that's vendor A. Vendor B naman, since 9 years yung life niya, dalawang cycle lang. Okay? So initial investment natin na 900,000. Salvage value at the end of 9 years is 100,000. Annual maintenance and operations cost is 155,000. We're going to repeat the same cycle Uh, and then, yun na. Yun na yung point ng ating 18th year. Same approach. We're going to solve for the present worth, lahat ng cash flow, yung mga lahat ng values sa may cash flow diagram, compute natin yung present worth. And then, i-compare natin sa vendor A. Okay, so this would be our equation to solve for the present worth, net present worth. Okay, so net present worth, i-substitute lang natin yung mga values sa equation. Ang dami niyan. So, check nyo na lang yung sa module. Although mayroon naman dito, ano? Okay. So, the net present worth for vendor B is negative 2.07, approximately 2.07 million pesos. So, since it is a service project, vendor B is selected since it is cheaper than vendor A. Okay? That's for the LCM approach. No? So, ganun lang kasimple yung LCM approach. Next is the study period approach. What if, for letter B, COE Construction Company has a standard practice of evaluating all options over a 5-year study period? 5 years lang. Okay? So for if a study period of 5 years is used and salvage value are not expected to change, okay, so for vendor A, ang salvage value niya ay 50,000 after 6 years. So, ganun pa rin yung salvage value niya after 5 years. Sabi dun sa problem. Ganun din sa may vendor B, ang salvage value niya after 9 years is 100,000. Ganun pa rin yung salvage value niya after 5 years. Okay. So, which vendor should be selected? So, for vendor A, since 5 years lang, so take note, 5 years lang yung value ng N natin and then 15% yung MARR. So, lahat lang ng cash flow within 5 years, yun lang ang i-compute natin. I-include natin. Okay, so for vendor A, so meron tayong initial investment na 750,000, annual operations and maintenance cost na 175,000. Take note, 5 years lang ito. And after 5 years, meron tayong salvage value na 50,000. Plus yan na kasi that is going inflow yan sa cash flow natin. Babalik sa atin yan pag binenta natin yung equipment or investment at the end of 5 years. Okay, so the net present worth then is negative 1.3 million. Okay, negative 1.31 million for vendor A. And then for vendor B naman, same din. So although 9 years yung lifespan ng vendor B, ang analysis period natin is 5 years. So, lahat ng involved na cash flow within 5 years under vendor B, yun lang yung isasali natin dun sa computation. So, again, initial value or principal natin is 100,000. Annual maintenance and operations cost na 155,000. 5 years, take note. MARR is 15%. And then after 5 years, ang salvage value natin is 100,000. No? Hindi daw nag-iba, sabi dun sa problem. Okay? So, with that, i-transfer natin dun sa may, or compute natin yung present worth niya. And then we have a net present worth of vendor B, approximately 1.39 million. So, we are going to choose the cheapest since it's a service project. So, in this case, vendor A is now selected based on its smaller present worth value. This means that the shortened study period of 5 years has caused a switch in the economic decisions. So sa LCM approach kanina, vendor B ang mas mura, no? Pero dito sa study period, shorter yung analysis period natin, vendor A na yung pipiliin natin since cheaper siya. Okay? In situations such as this, the standard practice of using a fixed study period should be carefully examined to ensure that the appropriate approach that is LCM or fixed study period is used to satisfy the equal service requirement. Okay, so that is those are pala, no? Those are the LCM approach. So that's how we do LCM approach and the study period approach. Okay, I hope klaro yung mga approaches natin. Okay, I think that is the end of lesson 1. Lesson 2 na yung next. Okay, so that's it.